Amara had always dreamed of flying since she was a little girl growing up in a small town where the sky seemed endless and the clouds looked like soft pillows she could reach if she jumped high enough. Every morning she would wake up early and run outside to watch the planes take off from the distant airport and imagine herself sitting in the cockpit feeling the controls under her hands and the wind rushing past the wings as she soared above the world. Her fascination with planes grew stronger each year, and when she finally reached the age where she could join a flight school, she did not hesitate. She spent hours every day learning everything she could about engines, navigation, weather patterns, and emergency procedures, her notebooks filled with diagrams and notes, and her determination unmatched by anyone else in her class. She wanted to prove that she could handle anything the sky threw at her, and she wanted to be respected for her skill and her courage. On the day she was assigned to the airport for her latest flight, she woke up before sunrise feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She dressed in her uniform, checked her bag with extra maps and flight charts, and headed to the airport. When she arrived, the hangar was already busy with pilots, mechanics, and crew members preparing planes for the day. Amara felt the hum of energy in the air, the smell of fuel mixed with the scent of warm metal, and she felt her heart beat faster knowing she was about to step into the place she loved most. She was greeted by the chief pilot, a tall man with graying hair who looked at her with a quick glance that made her pause. He handed her a clipboard and asked her to wait outside while the rest of the team prepared the main aircraft. Amara froze for a moment, feeling her chest tighten. The words hit her like a sudden gust of wind. She had expected to fly, she had trained for this moment, but now she was told to step aside and watch. She swallowed her frustration and nodded calmly, but inside she felt a fire building, a determination that no one would take away from her. She stepped outside where the cold morning air brushed against her face, and she could hear the distant roar of engines starting and the clanging of tools in the hangar. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that this was not the end, it was just another challenge she had to overcome. While she waited, she observed the planes around her, the sleek lines of the jets, the careful attention the mechanics gave to every bolt and panel. She remembered all the lessons she had learned and the hours she had spent practicing every maneuver until it became second nature. Her mind wandered to the possibility that she might get a chance to prove herself, even if they did not plan to let her fly today. She imagined a scenario where something went wrong and her training would be the key to saving everyone. The thought both worried and excited her because she knew that when the sky was calm it was beautiful, but when it was dangerous it required someone who could think quickly and act without fear. She thought about the other pilots, some of them friendly and some dismissive, but none of them knew her dedication or the way she had pushed herself beyond limits to reach this point. She felt a quiet pride that no one could see, and reminded herself that talent and courage were not defined by who gave you permission, but by what you could do when the moment demanded it. The morning passed slowly as she checked her equipment, reviewed her flight charts, and mentally prepared herself for any eventuality. She listened to the radio chatter and heard the usual routine communications, pilots talking about weather and schedules, but nothing hinted at the chaos that would soon unfold. Amara felt a strange mix of calm and alertness, her senses heightened, as if the sky itself was whispering that today was special. She thought about the feeling of being in control of a plane, the power to navigate thousands of feet above the ground, and the responsibility that came with every decision she made. She remembered her instructors telling her that confidence came from preparation and courage from action, and she repeated those lessons in her mind like a mantra. Suddenly, a loud commotion came from the hangar, and her attention snapped to the source. She could hear voices raised in alarm, and the sound of something heavy being knocked over. She ran toward the hangar entrance, but was stopped by a mechanic, who told her to stay back. The pilot in charge had made the call, she had to wait. Amara took a step back, but her eyes never left the chaos inside. She felt a tension in her chest that was unfamiliar, a mixture of fear and anticipation. She could feel her heart pounding against her ribs like a drum. She focused on her breathing in and out, slow and steady. She reminded herself that she was ready. She had faced emergencies and simulations. She had studied every possible problem, and she trusted her instincts completely. She remembered the hours spent alone in the flight simulator, pretending that the plane was shaking violently in the wind, and she had to make quick decisions. She remembered the sweat on her brow and the racing of her mind, and now she knew that all that practice had been for moments exactly like this. She thought about the passengers who would be on the plane, the families, the children, the travelers who trusted the pilots to keep them safe. She felt a sense of duty and responsibility heavier than any backpack or clipboard she had carried before. Her thoughts raced faster than the wind, and yet she felt a clarity she had never experienced before, as if all her training and dreams had led to this precise moment. She could hear the radio crackle and a voice call for help, and she knew that if she acted she could make a difference. Amara glanced at the plane she had been assigned to wait for, and saw the pilot struggling inside the cockpit, his hands trembling slightly, and his eyes wide with panic. She knew in that instant that the moment to step up had arrived. Her feet moved before her mind fully registered. She was running toward the access ladder, her hands steady, her mind focused, and her heart pounding with a rhythm that pushed her forward. She climbed into the cockpit, and looked around, taking in the instruments, the controls, and the trembling pilot. She felt a surge of determination and confidence that she had never known before. She leaned over and calmly started giving instructions, guiding the pilot through the necessary adjustments. Slowly the plane began to stabilize, and the chaos in her mind matched the gradual calming of the aircraft. She could see the relief on the pilot's face, and she felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that her skills had turned fear into control. Outside the hangar, people stopped and stared, amazed at how quickly the situation had changed. They had doubted her moments ago, but now they could not deny the expertise and courage she had shown. Amara focused on the task at hand, keeping the plane steady, making sure every passenger would remain safe. She did not think about praise or recognition. She thought only about the responsibility she held, and the promise she had made to herself that she would never let fear control her actions. The sun rose higher in the sky, and the engines hummed a steady rhythm under her hands. She felt a connection to the plane and the sky that was both thrilling and humbling. She knew that this moment would stay with her forever, and that the story of her courage would become part of the history of the airport and the people who witnessed it. She breathed in the clean morning air and allowed herself a small smile, knowing that her love for flying and her determination had led her to this extraordinary moment where she truly became a pilot who could handle anything the sky offered. In the air, as if something was not right, she stayed alert, every muscle in her body ready to move, and her mind replayed all the emergency procedures she had memorized over years of training. She knew that when a plane was in trouble, every second counted, and she had to be prepared to act immediately. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the tarmac, and Amara felt a mixture of nerves and anticipation, knowing that this day could test everything she had learned. Suddenly, a loud alarm rang from the control tower, followed by frantic radio chatter. She could hear the voices of pilots and crew calling out warnings. The usual calm routine of the morning had turned into chaos. She sprinted toward the hangar, but a mechanic waved her back, telling her to stay outside. She paused, but did not stop watching as the pilot in the cockpit struggled with the controls, his hands shaking slightly, and the plane wobbling dangerously. She felt her heart pound and a sense of urgency rise inside her. She knew that hesitation could be fatal. She reminded herself to stay calm and think clearly. Her training had prepared her for moments exactly like this. She took a deep breath and focused on the plane, noticing every movement, every tilt, and every sound. She analyzed the situation quickly and realized that the pilot had lost control of the stabilizers and needed guidance to regain balance. Amara did not hesitate. She ran to the access ladder and climbed into the cockpit, her hands steady and her mind clear. She leaned over the pilot and spoke in a firm, calm voice, giving instructions to adjust the controls to stabilize the plane. She guided him through each step, carefully monitoring the instruments and the response of the aircraft. The wobbling began to lessen, and the plane started to level out slowly. Outside the hangar, the crew and onlookers stopped in surprise, watching the situation change rapidly from panic to controlled action. Amara continued to give directions, her focus absolute. She reminded the pilot to keep his hands steady, to follow the rhythm of the engines, and to trust the adjustments she made. Her mind worked faster than ever before, calculating angles, speeds, and altitudes. She adjusted levers and buttons with precision, and the plane responded as if it were an extension of her own body. She could feel the vibrations in the seat, the hum of the engines, and the wind against the fuselage, all working together in harmony. She felt a sense of connection to the aircraft, unlike anything she had experienced before. The passengers inside remained unaware of the danger they were in because Amara spoke to them over the intercom in a calm voice, assuring them that everything was under control. She described the situation in simple terms and asked them to remain seated and relaxed. She knew that their trust and calmness were as important as controlling the plane itself. As the minutes passed, the plane gradually stabilized, and Amara guided it toward a safe altitude. She instructed the pilot to maintain a steady course while she calculated the best approach for landing. She could see the relief beginning to show on his face as confidence returned. He followed her directions carefully, and the plane no longer wobbled dangerously. The control tower radio crackled with surprised voices asking who had taken control, and Amara calmly replied she identified herself and provided the necessary details. The officials listened in awe, realizing that her quick thinking and skill had averted a potential disaster. She felt a quiet pride, but she did not allow it to distract her from her responsibility. She continued monitoring every instrument, making sure that the engines ran smoothly, the hydraulics functioned properly, and the plane stayed on course. She adjusted minor fluctuations in altitude and speed. She checked fuel levels and navigation systems, making sure that nothing was overlooked. Every action Deliberate, every decision calculated. She felt a rush of adrenaline, but also a deep sense of purpose. She had always known that flying required courage and focus, but now she truly understood the weight of responsibility that came with controlling a plane in crisis. She thought about the people on board, their families and dreams, and realized that her actions had a direct impact on their safety and well-being. She felt honored and determined to do everything in her power to ensure a safe outcome. As she guided the plane through the sky, she noticed changes in weather, the clouds shifting and wind currents affecting the balance. She anticipated each movement and adjusted the plane's trajectory smoothly. She communicated clearly with the control tower, updating them on her position and the plan for landing. She could hear the surprise and admiration in their voices as they recognized her skill and calmness. She focused on the runway in the distance, visualizing each step of the landing sequence. She instructed the pilot to align the plane properly, reduce speed gradually, and prepare for touchdown. She calculated angles and descent rates, ensuring the plane would touch down safely. The engines hummed steadily, and the vibrations were minimal. Her heart beat steadily as she maintained control over every aspect of the landing. The runway approached, and she instructed the pilot to keep a steady hand. The landing gear extended smoothly, and the wheels touched the tarmac gently. The brakes engaged, and the plane slowed to a safe stop. She exhaled slowly, feeling a surge of relief and accomplishment. The passengers clapped quietly, unaware of the full extent of the crisis, but grateful for the calm experience. The crew members stared in awe, realizing that Amara had not only taken control but executed the landing flawlessly. They approached her with questions and praise. She remained calm and composed, answering every inquiry with clarity and precision. The chief pilot arrived and looked at her with a mixture of shock and respect. He acknowledged her quick thinking and remarkable skill. Amara smiled politely, but inside she felt a sense of pride that was deeper than any words could express. She had proven to herself and everyone watching that courage and preparation mattered more than assumptions or expectations. As the plane came to a complete stop, she made sure the passengers disembarked safely. She guided them with calm instructions and checked on the crew, ensuring everyone was unharmed. She documented the events carefully, noting every adjustment and communication so that future flights could learn from the experience. She reflected on the day and realized that this moment would stay with her forever. It was a turning point that validated her years of dedication, training, and determination. She had faced fear head-on and emerged successful. She had taken control in a moment when hesitation could have been disastrous, and her actions had saved lives. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that she had lived up to her own standards and proven to the world that ability and courage knew no boundaries. As the sun set over the airport, she stood by the plane, watching the sky change colors from blue to gold to pink. She felt a quiet connection to the world she had always dreamed of navigating. She knew that this day was just the beginning of many more challenges and adventures in the sky. She had learned that confidence came from preparation, and courage came from action, and she vowed to carry these lessons with her in every flight she would take in the future. She walked away from the plane with her head held high, and a heart full of pride, ready for whatever the sky would present next. She had earned her place among the pilots, and her journey in the world of aviation had only just begun. After the plane had safely landed, Amara felt a brief moment of relief, but she knew her work was not finished yet. The passengers were safe, but the airport and the crew still needed guidance. As she stayed near the cockpit, she watched the crew members begin their inspections, checking engines and instruments. She assisted where she could, offering advice and support, making sure nothing was overlooked. She noticed the chief pilot speaking quietly with other officials and gesturing toward her. She understood that the situation had changed entirely, and that she was no longer just an observer. She felt a quiet sense of pride, but she did not allow it to distract her from the tasks at hand. She moved around the plane, directing people calmly and confidently, making sure passengers exited safely and that their belongings were secured. She reassured anxious travelers, explaining that the plane had landed safely and that they could move at a normal pace. She felt the warmth of gratitude in their eyes and the comfort in their voices as they thanked her quietly. She realized that this moment was more than just a flight. It was a test of leadership and composure, a chance to demonstrate the skill and calmness she had built over years of practice. As she helped the crew, she thought about the day and how quickly it had changed from a normal assignment to an emergency situation. She reflected on the training she had undergone, the simulations, the long hours spent studying charts and learning procedures, and she realized that every single detail had prepared her for this moment. The months of practice that sometimes felt tedious or repetitive now felt meaningful and essential. She understood that preparation was the difference between success and failure. She felt a deep sense of connection to every flight she had taken, every lesson she had learned, every obstacle she had overcome. She began to imagine herself in future flights, handling difficult situations with the same composure and skill she had shown today. She knew that the sky was unpredictable and that she would always need to be ready to act quickly and decisively. She thought about the other pilots, some of whom had doubted her ability, but she realized that proving herself to herself was far more important than seeking approval from anyone else. She had learned that courage was about action, not recognition, and that skill was built through dedication and perseverance. As the airport began to settle into its normal routine, Amara was called to a small office where officials wanted to speak with her. She entered quietly and saw several senior pilots and administrators waiting. They looked at her with expressions that mixed surprise, admiration, and respect. They asked her to explain every step she had taken during the emergency and how she had guided the pilot through the difficult moments. She described calmly and clearly the procedures she had followed, the adjustments she had made, and the instructions she had given. She emphasized the importance of keeping a clear mind and following training. She noted the significance of anticipating problems and acting quickly without panic. She could see the officials nodding as they listened. Her words carried authority because they were based on experience and successful action. They asked her questions about decision-making and coordination with the control tower, and she answered each one thoughtfully, providing detailed explanations and practical insights. They seemed impressed not only by her skill but also by her ability to communicate and guide others under pressure. She realized that this recognition was not about fame, but about the trust and respect she had earned through her actions. She felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that her ability to stay calm and think clearly had made a real difference in a stressful situation. As she left the office, she walked back to the tarmac. The sun had risen higher in the sky, casting a golden light over the planes and hangars. She looked around at the busy scene. Pilots, mechanics, and crew members moving with purpose, and she felt a sense of belonging. She had always loved the sky, but now she understood the responsibility that came with it, the ability to guide a plane safely, and to ensure the well-being of passengers and crew. She thought about the passengers she had helped today, imagining their relief and gratitude. She knew that her actions would stay with them just as this experience would stay with her. She walked past the plane she had landed calmly, checking each detail one more time. She wanted to make sure everything was in order. She observed the instruments and controls, noting the smooth functioning of each system. She reflected on how quickly the situation had escalated and how her training and preparation had allowed her to respond effectively. She felt a deep sense of pride mixed with humility, knowing that every moment had mattered. She considered her journey to this point, the years of practice and study, the early mornings and long nights, the dedication and effort she had put into becoming a skilled pilot. She realized that this experience had not only tested her ability but had strengthened her confidence and resolve. She felt more certain than ever that she was capable of handling unexpected challenges. She thought about the future and how every flight might present new obstacles, but she felt ready to face them. She had learned that fear could be overcome with focus and preparation, and that skill combined with courage could achieve remarkable results. As she walked toward the hangar, she noticed a group of young trainees watching the scene with wide eyes and admiration. She approached them and spoke kindly, explaining the importance of training, patience, and perseverance. She shared some of the lessons she had learned about staying calm under pressure and trusting her preparation. She encouraged them to practice diligently and to believe in their abilities. She saw the hope and inspiration in their faces and felt a sense of responsibility to set an example for the next generation of pilots. She realized that her actions today were not just about saving a plane, but about showing others what was possible when skill and courage were combined. She thought about the chief pilot who had initially asked her to wait outside. She understood that people sometimes underestimated others, but she had proven that determination and ability could overcome doubt. She felt a quiet sense of satisfaction in knowing that she had changed the perception of those around her, not through words, but through action. As the day continued, she continued to assist the airport staff, checking plans and schedules, and observing the procedures. She made suggestions for improvements. She spoke with mechanics about equipment checks and with pilots about flight safety. She shared insights from her experience today, emphasizing the importance of preparation and calm action. She felt energized by the opportunity to contribute and to learn from others. She noticed the sense of respect and trust that had grown among the team and realized that relationships in aviation were built on reliability, skill, and cooperation. She reflected on the way people had reacted in the emergency and how quickly teamwork had become essential. She understood that leadership was not about authority but about guidance, support, and the ability to act decisively when needed. She thought about the passengers again, imagining them sharing stories of their flight and feeling safe. Because of her calm guidance, she felt a warmth in her heart, knowing that her actions had positively affected others. She considered her own growth, realizing that she had become more confident, skilled, and resilient. She had faced an unexpected challenge and responded successfully, and she felt prepared for whatever the sky might present in the future. As the sun began to lower toward the horizon, she watched the planes taxiing to hangars and the staff finishing their tasks. She felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that she had contributed to safety and success. She reflected on the lessons of the day about courage, preparation, focus, and the importance of believing in oneself. She knew that this experience would stay with her and guide her in every flight she would take. She walked away from the tarmac, her head held high, her heart full of pride and anticipation for the future. She felt certain that this was only the beginning of many extraordinary moments in her journey as a pilot in the vast and unpredictable sky. The next morning Amara arrived at the airport earlier than usual, feeling a mixture of excitement and focus. She had reflected on the events of the previous day and knew that today she wanted to continue proving her skills and learning from every experience. As she walked through the hangar, she noticed familiar faces greeting her with smiles and nods. She felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that respect and trust had started to grow among her colleagues. She checked the flight schedule and saw that she would be assisting in a routine training flight with another pilot. She packed her bag, carefully reviewing notes and flight charts. She felt the same thrill she had felt as a child watching planes take off, her heart beating with anticipation. As she approached the assigned aircraft, she observed the mechanics performing checks and listened to their updates. She asked questions and offered suggestions calmly and confidently, showing that she was knowledgeable and attentive. The other pilot arrived and greeted her with a mixture of curiosity and respect. He introduced himself and explained the flight plan. She listened carefully, analyzing the details and offering insights about navigation and weather conditions. She felt a sense of teamwork forming and understood that cooperation and communication were as important as individual skill. Before takeoff, she walked around the plane, inspecting every detail. She checked the fuel levels, engines, and instruments, mentally reviewing all the emergency procedures. She reminded herself that preparation was key, and that staying alert at every moment could make a difference. Once inside the cockpit, she went over the checklist methodically. She encouraged the other pilot to follow procedures carefully, and together they ensured the plane was fully ready. She felt a sense of satisfaction seeing the teamwork work seamlessly. She started the engines and listened to the hum of power filling the cabin, feeling the thrill of control and responsibility. As they taxied to the runway, she glanced at the sky, noticing the patterns of clouds and wind currents. She adjusted the controls and explained each step to her colleague, emphasizing awareness and caution while maintaining confidence. Once airborne, Amara focused on keeping the flight smooth. She guided the plane through turns and altitude changes, explaining navigation techniques and control methods. She noticed minor turbulence and calmly adjusted the plane's position. She communicated with the control tower, giving precise updates and listening attentively to instructions. She felt a sense of mastery as the plane responded perfectly to her guidance and decisions. The training flight included various maneuvers and emergency simulations. She encouraged the other pilot to react calmly and think critically. She emphasized the importance of anticipating problems and maintaining composure under pressure. They practiced engine adjustments, altitude changes, and navigation corrections, each exercise strengthening confidence and skill. Amara noticed how quickly the other pilot improved following her instructions. She felt proud of the teamwork and the growth they achieved together. She reflected on her own journey, realizing that her experiences yesterday had strengthened her ability to guide others and make clear decisions under stress. As they continued the flight, she noticed changes in weather, darker clouds forming in the distance. She carefully adjusted the plane's altitude and angle, preparing for potential turbulence. She calmly explained each step to her colleague and monitored instruments closely. She felt a surge of alertness as she analyzed wind direction, speed, and cloud density. She guided the plane safely through the slight turbulence, showing control and precision. She reminded herself that in aviation, every detail mattered, from engine response to subtle changes in the environment. She thought about the importance of observation and anticipation. As they approached a practice landing zone, she prepared for the descent. She checked the instruments, adjusted speed and altitude, and communicated with the ground control. She instructed the other pilot to focus on alignment and gradual reduction of speed. She guided the plane through the approach, maintaining a steady rhythm. She could feel the slight vibrations through the controls and adjusted carefully until the wheels touched down gently. The plane rolled smoothly along the tarmac and came to a safe stop. She exhaled, feeling the same pride and calm satisfaction she had felt during her real emergency yesterday. She knew that practice and repetition were essential to mastery. The other pilot looked at her with admiration and gratitude, and she encouraged him warmly, explaining the importance of continued training and dedication. She reflected on how guiding another pilot allowed her to reinforce her own skills and learn patience and clear Communication. As they completed post-flight inspections, she checked every detail carefully, and noted improvements that could be made. She discussed these observations with the mechanics and the other pilots, suggesting small adjustments for safety and efficiency. She felt a sense of responsibility and accomplishment, knowing that her input could make future flights safer and more successful. She walked around the plane feeling connected to every part of it. The engines, instruments, and controls all reflected the effort and care of the team. She thought about the passengers who would rely on pilots like her, and the trust they placed in the crew. She felt humbled and motivated to always perform her best. As the sun moved higher, she took a moment to look at the sky, the colors shifting gently, and the wind brushing softly against her face. She imagined the endless possibilities above the clouds, and felt excitement for future adventures. She knew that every flight would bring new challenges, but she felt ready for them. Confident in her preparation, skill, and judgment, she returned to the hangar to debrief with her colleagues. They discussed the flight calmly and analytically, sharing observations and lessons learned. She felt satisfaction in contributing to the group and helping everyone improve. She realized that collaboration and shared knowledge were just as important as individual ability. The airport grew quieter as the day went on, and Amara took a moment to reflect on her journey. She thought about the day yesterday, the calm she had maintained under pressure, and the lives she had helped protect. She thought about today's training, and the growth and teamwork she had fostered. She felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment, knowing that she was developing not only her own abilities but also inspiring and guiding others. She walked along the tarmac thinking about future flights and the endless sky above. She felt a sense of freedom and responsibility intertwined. She understood that mastery required both courage and humility. She vowed to continue learning and improving, and to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. She smiled, knowing that each day brought her closer to the pilot she aspired to be, and that her journey was only beginning. The horizon stretched wide and inviting before her. She felt the wind in her hair and the sun warming her face. She breathed deeply, feeling grateful for the path she had chosen, and excited for every flight and lesson that lay ahead. She knew that her story in the skies was unfolding, and that every decision, skill, and act of courage would shape her journey and the people she would guide in the future. Amara arrived at the airport early, feeling a sense of excitement and purpose. She had spent the last few days reflecting on her experiences, and she knew that today would be another opportunity to grow and prove her abilities as a pilot. She walked through the hangar, greeting colleagues who smiled and nodded in recognition of her skill and calmness. She checked the flight assignments and saw that she would be leading a longer training route with several stops. She packed her bag with charts, maps, and notes, reviewing every detail. She wanted to be fully prepared. She felt a thrill as she imagined the planes soaring above the clouds and the freedom of navigating the sky. She approached the assigned aircraft, observing the mechanics performing checks and carefully listening to their updates. She asked questions and offered suggestions, ensuring that everything was ready. She wanted to make certain that no detail was overlooked. She met the co-pilot for the day and introduced herself warmly. She explained the flight plan and listened carefully to his questions. She felt the beginning of a strong partnership forming. As they went over the checklist together, she reminded him of safety procedures and emphasized the importance of attention to detail. Once inside the cockpit, Amara ran through every control, every instrument, and every system. She explained each function and encouraged the co-pilot to become familiar with every detail. She emphasized situational awareness and communication as the keys to a successful flight. As they taxied to the runway, she felt a sense of anticipation. The engines hummed beneath her hands, and she felt the energy of the aircraft waiting to lift into the sky. Once airborne, Amara guided the plane smoothly, explaining each maneuver. She monitored instruments closely and adjusted controls as needed. She noticed subtle changes in the wind and the movement of clouds. She anticipated the shifts and directed the co-pilot to respond accordingly. She emphasized the importance of calm observation and quick action when necessary. They practiced navigation techniques, emergency drills, and minor adjustments to simulate real-life challenges. Amara observed the co-pilot learning quickly, following her guidance, and she felt proud of his progress. She knew that training others helped reinforce her own skills and understanding. She maintained constant communication with the control tower, updating them on altitude and position, and listening attentively to instructions. She analyzed every detail carefully, making small corrections when needed. As they approached a mountainous area, she noticed sudden wind turbulence. She calmly adjusted the plane's angle and speed, guiding the co-pilot to do the same. She explained the physics of wind currents and how to respond safely. She emphasized trust in instruments and careful observation. The plane responded to her guidance smoothly, and the turbulence passed without incident. She felt a deep satisfaction knowing that preparation and focus could overcome challenges. They flew over rivers, forests, and valleys, enjoying the scenery while staying focused on instruments and procedures. Amara reminded the co-pilot to balance appreciation with responsibility. She explained how observation of terrain and Weather was essential to safety. She guided the plane through careful altitude adjustments and gentle turns, ensuring a smooth flight. The next part of the route required landing at a smaller airstrip with limited space. She carefully calculated descent rate, approach angle, and speed. She instructed the co-pilot to focus on alignment and follow her directions precisely. She monitored instruments and the landscape continuously. She guided the plane through a smooth descent and landing. The wheels touched the tarmac gently and the brakes engaged gradually. She felt the familiar rush of pride and calm satisfaction. She congratulated the co-pilot on following instructions effectively, and emphasized the importance of calm and preparation during every landing. After the stopover, they refueled and checked the systems. Amara went over each instrument and control, explaining small adjustments and tips for efficiency. She encouraged the co-pilot to ask questions and think critically. She stressed the value of learning from every flight and every experience. She felt a sense of responsibility in guiding him and knew that her influence would help him develop into a skilled and confident pilot. As they took off again, she focused on monitoring altitude, speed, and navigation. She analyzed weather conditions ahead and adjusted the route slightly to avoid strong winds. She explained each decision and the reasoning behind it to the co-pilot, reinforcing critical thinking and situational awareness. She noticed changes in cloud patterns and light indicating weather shifts. She communicated clearly and calmly with the control tower, providing updates and receiving guidance. The plane responded perfectly to her careful adjustments, and the co-pilot followed her instructions precisely. The flight included minor challenges to simulate emergencies. She guided the co-pilot through each one step by step, explaining procedures for handling unexpected situations. She emphasized calm thinking and trust in training and instruments. She monitored reactions and provided encouragement, keeping confidence high. As the day progressed, they navigated multiple routes and landings, each time refining skills and deepening understanding. Amara observed how her own abilities had grown over recent days. She felt more confident and composed than ever before, and realized that experience combined with preparation created strength and resilience. She thought about the passengers who would one day rely on pilots trained like this, and felt a deep sense of responsibility, knowing that her guidance would contribute to their safety. As they approached the final landing of the day, she carefully calculated descent angle and speed. She monitored every instrument and environmental factor. She guided the co-pilot to maintain calm and precise control. She emphasized trust in procedure and careful observation. The plane touched down smoothly and came to a stop with complete control. Amara smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment knowing that every aspect of the flight had been executed with precision. She guided the co-pilot through post-flight checks, ensuring that all systems were functioning properly and that every detail was accounted for. She reflected on the day and realized how much she had grown. Through challenges, teaching, and careful practice, she walked around the plane, observing engines, instruments, and controls, appreciating the teamwork and effort that had gone into a successful flight. She considered her journey from a child dreaming of the sky to a skilled pilot capable of guiding others. She felt gratitude for the lessons learned, the preparation undertaken, and the courage to act under pressure. She knew that her story in the sky was continuing, and that each flight added experience and confidence to her journey. As the sun began to set, she looked at the horizon, feeling the warmth of accomplishment and excitement for the future. She imagined many more flights, adventures, and challenges she would face with skill and courage. She knew that her determination, preparation, and calm focus would guide her through every obstacle she would encounter. She walked away from the plane feeling connected to the sky and to her own growth. She understood that being a pilot was more than flying. It was about responsibility, leadership, and the ability to act with confidence and care. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that her actions today had strengthened not only herself but also the co-pilot she had guided and the team that relied on them. She looked forward to every flight, every lesson, and every moment in the sky, knowing that her journey was ongoing and that every challenge would shape her into an even stronger and wiser pilot. She had learned that courage, preparation, and focus were the keys to success, and she would carry those lessons into every flight she would take for the rest of her career. Her heart was full of pride, her mind sharp, and her spirit ready for the adventures that lay ahead.